Hello guys, welcome to Co Academy. Guys, in this video we'll be talking about the first of the feminist theories, and that is liberal feminism. So let's start. So remember that liberal feminism, it's the most widely practiced form of feminist theory, okay? And it is based it's most of the feminists subscribe to this form of liberalism, okay? It is based on the idea of equal rights within the nation state system. So liberal feminists, what do they propose? They propose female women emancipation within the existing structure, within the nation state system. There are various laws and rules and regulations within the nation state system, and what liberal feminists tend to achieve is that while remaining in the same system and laws, they try to basically lay their emphasis on affirmative action for women, making policies, legislation in which women are empowered. This school of thought has several variants, okay, as we will see, and articulations, but is mainly concerned with the issues of legal and political equality. So these are the two basically uh, foundations of this liberal feminism. They basically want equality of between men and women in the legal sphere and in the political sphere. By legal sphere, we mean that there should be legislation like no discrimination with regards to pay just because of on the basis of gender. Secondly, laws should be made equitable. Then political equality means that women should be given right to vote, that is right to suffrage, and then there should be women representation in the parliament and all those things, okay? Moving on, liberal feminism was inspired by the liberal thoughts of Western society during the 19th century Enlightenment period. So, as you know, that the 19th century Enlightenment period was basically inspired by rationality of human beings, and that human beings are rational creatures, and they have this ability to make independent decisions based on educated enlightenment. So, in the context of that Enlightenment period, and the first wave feminism, basically the liberal feminists bought their ideas from enlightenment thinking, okay, that there is rationality and human beings should be able to make their choices individually. So it was concerned with extending to women the liberal values of liberty, equality, and justice. So the back then in the 19th century, the Enlightenment period ideas were liberty, equality, and justice. So liberal feminists also sought to achieve these three ideals through legal and social reforms so that women have more access to education, polity or politics, which were considered as domains of men only. So back then only men had the privileged access to education. Only men voted, and they sat in the parliament. So liberal feminists basically tried to achieve equality on these two fronts. They basically tried to achieve liberty, equality, and justice on these two fronts for the women. So moving on, liberal feminists yes. So liberal feminists accepted the status quo. So unlike radical feminists, which we will talk about later, liberal feminists did not, believed in turning the system upside down. Okay, they did not favor the alteration of existing structure. They believed that within the same structure, women's liberation and emancipation can be achieved. So liberal feminists work within the structure of mainstream society to integrate women into that structure. In the first wave, biological differences were not challenged as well. So, it was in the second wave feminism, and as a result of radical feminism, that women that feminist movements came up with the ideas that women were basically they were suppressed lot because of the biological differences, whereas this liberal feminist movement did not talk about those issues. It just talked about the public sphere, that is women should be given uh, you know political rights and right to education and all those stuff, okay? So it was not like more micro in structure, it was about macro in structure. It basically thought about and posited about women's rights at a macro level, such as in the politics, in legal justice system and all that, okay? So moving on. So yes, liberal feminism affirms that women's subordinate social position can be addressed by the existing, once again this is very important, existing political process under democracy. Liberal feminists believe that yes, existing political process, that is the process of democracy, can give women the rights. Okay, women had to access parliament first. Okay, therefore in the first wave we saw demand to vote for women. They believe that if women are to be represented equally in the society, then first they have to enter the parliament, and from parliament they can effect change, they can affect the policies which were beneficial for the women. So the first step was the right to vote, and of course once they got the right to vote, then they can and they could enter parliament. Okay, so for liberal feminism, feminism, the key battle is access to education. If access to education is made possible, then gender equality can be achieved. So once again, if there is access to education, then women will be better educated and better informed, and they will be able to vote in their best interest. And once they achieve vote, they will get a sound weight in the society, so that they get access to parliament and all those things. Okay, so who were eminent liberal feminists? First was Mary Wollstonecraft, and she wrote the book A Vindication of the Rights of Women. She is basically considered the founder of this liberal feminism. So she said that this is one of her famous quotes. She said that if women be educated for dependence, that is to act according to the will of another fallible being, here she is referring that if women are taught dependence upon another fallible being, that is the male member of the society, because he is also gullible. Male can also make mistakes. He is not omniscient, like omniwise and all those things. So to the will of another fallible being and submit right or wrong to power. So where are we to stop? So if the purpose of the education is like to make women subservient and dependent upon another being, and who can also be wrong, then where are we to stop? I mean, if women are made dependent upon their husbands, like whether he's right or wrong, then we are heading nowhere. This society will head nowhere. So the divine right of husbands, she was further said that the divine right of husbands, like the divine right of kings, may, it is hoped, in this enlightened age be contested without danger. So, do you know, in the 1700s they were living in the Enlightenment era. So they said that husbands should not have this divine rights over their wives, just like kings. So once again, this is very important quote, and you can quote it everywhere. She said that Mary Wollstonecraft said that I do not wish women to have power over men, but over themselves. So she does not want it like a matriarchal society where women would be all powerful in a typical household. No, she did not want that. She just wanted that women are free to make their choices. If they want to vote independently, then they should be able to vote. If they want to work outside, then they should be able to work outside. Uh, so basically, what she said is that women should be able to make choices, and since women are also rational beings, just like men, they need not be controlled by their husbands. So women are entitled to the same rights as men on the grounds that both are human beings. So Mary said that since both are human beings and capable of thinking independently, then they should be entitled to same rights. John Stuart Mill and Harriet Tyler Mill are basically another early liberal feminist writers, and they famously wrote the book The Subjection of Women, in which they said that basically that book they focused on establishing a right to vote and to hold political office. So they said that women need to get. So you once again, these two writers also belong to the liberal feminist era. So they also demanded right to vote and to hold political office, because they maintained that if women, they hold political office, then they can pull out more women out of that subordination and subservient status. Much of the book was dedicated to undermining popular stereotypes of women that were used to justify political exclusion. For example, back then the stereotypes were that women are not capable of making independent decisions, and they were women were sort of fickle, so they could not hold political office because they had these mood swings and things like that. They were stereotypes. But we see that later on, women have held political offices, and they have even governed better than some men. So these were stereotypes, and stereotypes, of course, can be done away with. So they proposed that society should be organized on the basis of reason, and the accidents of birth, such as sex, should be ignored. So they believe that, being born a girl or boy, that's just an accident of birth. Your life chances should not be dependent upon whether you are born a girl or boy. If you have the capability to reason, then you should be offered a level playing field. I mean, if you want to excel in academic, then one shouldn't be restricted just because she is a female. So Betty Friedan is another early liberal feminist writer, and she wrote this book, The Feminine Mystique. Okay, this was once again a very revolutionary book in the era of second wave feminism, which had considerable liberal feminism. So after this first wave feminism, second wave feminism, initial stage of second wave feminism also had this considerable amount of liberal feminist ideas. So she said that she wrote the book, The Problem That Has No Name: Unhappiness Despite Gains of Women's Rights. So what she maintained is that even though women got the right to vote, and uh, they even worked outside, they had this right to vote and equality before law and all those stuff, but still women were not happy. And she called that reason the problem that has no name. So women were unhappy. So what she says is that the traditional gender roles stifle women's development. So the division of labor based upon gender, that is women, that is the women you should have this private sphere of influence, like they should be at home, giving birth and rearing the children and providing emotional comfort to the family. So it was a private domain, and men worked in the public domain, like they are the breadwinners and all that stuff. So she says that traditional gender roles and gender division of labor, actually it stifled women's development. And if women are also rational beings, so if you stifle the mental development of a rational being, then they cannot be happy. I mean, even if the husband is earning very well and there is no monetary basically issues in a family, even then women are not basically, they are not satisfied with their lives, because they also want self accomplishment. They want to utilize their faculties to achieve different things. So बेसिकली द ट्रेडिशनल जो हमारे ट्रेडिशनल जो जेंडर रोल्स हैं, दे ट्रीट gender roles as inherently dehumanizing. Okay, she said that just because women are women, you are assigning them lower roles. Okay, family, rearing of the kids and all that. So these are dehumanizing. So she reflected the fact that it is a cultural myth that women seek security and fulfillment in domestic life. So once again, back then the ideas were that women actually had this inclination to seek security and fulfillment in the domestic life. They wanted to raise good kids, good mannered kids. They wanted to keep their husbands happy. She said that no, that's a cultural myth. Women also want to achieve something on their own. They also want to achieve something independently. So she said that since they were not allowed to express themselves freely and use their creative faculties, then they are still not happy, and this problem has no name. So general criticism on liberal feminism is that the main problem of liberal feminism is its tendency to accept male values as universal values. So since you know that like liberal feminism wants women to have all the rights which men have. Okay, so you cannot say that men, the men's values are universal values. For example, being aggressive and going outside and able to earn money, though these are not universal values. So why should women only aspire to have men values? They can aspire to something on their own based upon their own unique talents and characteristics. Later some theorists like radical feminists, they tried to celebrate the woman's strength. For example, childbearing, that was a strength of the woman and should not be considered as dehumanizing. Another criticism is that all women should want to become like men, to aspire to masculine values. So this is also one of the criticism over liberal feminists, because not all the women aspire to be like men. Not all the women want to go outside and work. Some women are happy, genuinely happy to work in homes. Okay, so, moving on. Liberal feminism often did not include an analysis of class or sexuality, the sex gender system. No difference between sex and gender. It came later in feminism. So basically, liberal feminists did not consider that sex and gender are two different things. they just saw this man woman relationship in this same category. Okay, they did not consider that gender actually was a social construct. Okay, they couldn't just thought that there's a difference between sex and gender. Okay, so criticism on liberal feminism from radical feminists. We will talk about radical feminists later, what they espouse, but they did criticize early liberal feminists. So argues that the radical feminists argue that women are different from men, and argue that equality implies that they aspire to be like men, who are responsible for war, violence, hierarchy, and the exploitation of nature and their fellows. So radical feminists say that liberal feminism actually wants women to be like men, whereas women are actually superior to men. Men's values, they were responsible for war, violence, hierarchy, and exploitation of nature, whereas women are different. So the women should not aspire to become like men. That is the belief of radical feminists. So liberal feminists were also criticized from social feminists. So social feminists object that liberal feminism ignores the problems of working class women. It neglects the questions of production and reproduction that lies at the heart of human activity. So social feminists believe that the problems of basically working class women are different from the problems of elite class women. So they say that liberal feminism did not consider the problems of working class women. Secondly, they said that liberal feminism ignored the question of production and reproduction. What is the concept of production and reproduction? It basically says that the concept of production is about, you do any work that is paid in terms of wages. For example, if you go out and work in a factory and you're paid wages, and that is the process of production. And what is the process of reproduction? It is when you do anything that is not paid and compensated. For example, women at homes rearing their kids, providing emotional support to their kids, those are the reproductive functions. Okay, so they said that there's a difference, and women basically performed reproductive functions, and they were not basically paid any compensation. So they became ultimately dependent upon men who were involved in the production function. So they said that socialists said that liberal feminists ignored this aspect of society. They just they just focused on achieving voting rights for women and all those things. But the thing is that the main cause of inequality lies in the relationship of women in terms of production and reproduction. That is, so long as women are working at homes and performing reproductive function, and men the production function, then no matter what rights you give to women, for example, even if women are given the right to vote, they are given the right to hold public office, there will still be inequality. So liberal feminists will, how even though you can criticize them a lot, but they achieved too many milestones in history. So they brought to the fore the discrimination against women at workplace. Okay, this is their first objective. This is their first achievement. Secondly, basically it was a result of liberal feminism that Equal Pay Act and Sex Discrimination Act were passed in the United States, and they chose to work towards legislative change to ensure equality of women and men. Once again, as we saw that liberal feminism actually sought to work within the existing structure, within the existing legislative structure, to ensure equality of men and women. So in the next video, we'll be talking about radical feminism. I hope this video clarified your concepts about liberal feminism, what it stands for. Basically, it stands for equal political and legal rights of women. Of course, it did not consider that sex and gender are two different things. It did not talk about private domain. It only talked about public domain. And even though women got rights and legal rights and voting rights, they were not happy because of the public private dichotomy, because of the division of labor based upon gender. Women also want self fulfillment, and even though they have the right to vote and they are equal in terms of law, but if they are not allowed to work outside and choose things on their own on the basis of rationality, then they can't be happy. So of course, radical feminism has lots of positives and negatives. It is criticized in general and also criticized by radical feminists and socialist feminists, but liberal feminism achieved a lot. It helped women in securing their voting rights. It helped women to hold public offices. It helped in passing various legislations which actually resulted in women achieving their statuses as equals. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching.